Today we are installing brand new coilovers on my 1978 Datsun 280Z. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Grayson McTaggart and I like working on cars, especially my Datsun 280Z, as well as I have a Subaru BRZ. So if that sounds cool to you, be sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of the content that I put out in the future. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. So what we're going to do is actually drop out the old coils of this car, and then I'm going to take them somewhere to get welded, just because I want these welded professionally. I want this car done right. So we're gonna go ahead and jack up the car and get the old coils out. I got Joseph here to help me out with that. And basically, we're gonna put the car up on stands, take out the whole suspension linkage, and then we're gonna take that off to get cut and welded to the new coilovers. Let's get started. So I finished getting all of the wheels off on all four of the hubs, and basically all that we have to do now is get the brake caliper off. To do this, there is actually a pin here. This thing goes right here, and you take that off and then you wiggle these out. These take a little bit of effort to get out. You kinda gotta wiggle them back and forth. These pins also hold them in, so you have to remove these pins from here and here. Once you do that, these will come out. From here, we have to remove this brake line, as well as two bolts holding the caliper in, and then all we have to do is drop the rest of this out. It's easier said than done, but the fronts are easier than the back, so this shouldn't take too long. Okay, so I got the caliper off. Now all I have to do is remove the center hub piece just by using a screwdriver and kind of whacking it off. It's just kind of pressure fit on there. And then there's a nut here that we have to remove, and then everything comes off. And then there's 4 screws for the heat shield. And then all you gotta do is drop it out pretty much. So when removing this heat shield, the last one's really kind of hard to get off, the last screw, because it's holding all of the pressure at that point. What I would recommend doing is you can actually wiggle the entire heat shield, because it's one screw holding it on, and it'll kind of break it loose just enough for you to get that screw undone. And just like that, the heat shield's off. While I have these off, I may clean them and I may paint them, because the backside, I don't know if you can see that, but it's really dirty, as well as the front is. So while I have these off, I'm gonna clean them and paint them. I may make a video about that, I may not. It's not that hard of a process. Once you have the heat shield off and all these other parts as well, this is pretty much what you have off of the car right now. You have the caliper, the pins that hold the caliper in, the brake pads, which hold, and then the pin that hold the brake pads in. These set of hardware, these nuts with axle grease on them. This holds the actual hub and the brake rotor in, and then obviously you have the brake rotor off. You have this hubcap off, as well as that heat shield with the hardware for that. So far, that's all we have off of the fronts. Now all we have to do is there are 2 bolts, one right here and one right here. You actually don't need to touch this suspension arm here. You don't need to touch this right here. And you don't need to touch any of this unless you are replacing any of that. And if you're only replacing the coil, you only have to remove these 2 bolts holding it in, and then we have the 3 up top right here. After that, the coil is completely ready to take out, so I'm gonna go ahead and get those 2 disconnected, and then we'll move on to the back and get that finished up. And just like that, the stock shock is out. While I was working on the fronts, Joseph was working on the back to undo these. If you just want to take the coil out, you don't necessarily have to remove the whole lower control arm, but I am, because how hard it is to disconnect the lower control arm from the actual hub itself. There is a spindle pin and a and that runs through the lower control arm, connecting it to the hub, and it's really hard to get out without the proper tools. So I'm just going to take the entire lower control arm out, and it'll be easier to get the spindle pin out from there, and I can just put it back in the way that it went in. So what I had Joseph do while I was over there in the front working is I had him disconnect the e-brake cable, which the e-brake cable was connected through a cotter pin as well as a tab, and then it just comes right out. It's pretty easy. The tab, you just use some vice grips to pull out, and the cotter pin you bend it back and then pull out with some pliers. As for the rest of it, there is 3 bolts holding in the actual strut inside the hatch of the car. Those are very self-explanatory, very easily seen when you open up the car. And then there are 4 bolts holding in the axle, which you have to undo. The easiest way that I found to do this is turn it to where you have 1 or 2 bolts in a good position to undo, and then pull the e-brake so they don't move while you're trying to undo it. And if you are removing the lower control arm, then you remove the spindle. I am not going to though. So in order to get mine out, as I'm leaving the spindle in and I'm removing the lower control arm mounts, which those are 4 bolts, really easy to undo. And then I also have to remove my sway bar connection that connects the sway bar to the lower control arm. It sounds like more hardware than just removing that spindle pin, which it is, but it's a lot easier of a job to do. So if you are doing coilovers in this car where you're cutting and welding the coilovers in place like I am doing, don't remove the spindle pin, just remove the entire lower control arm, unless you have the proper tool to remove that spindle pin. So now that the front and back are done on one side, you just have to repeat the exact same process on the other side. I know I didn't really show a lot of exactly what you have to do, but if you guys have questions on what bolts you need to undo, leave it in a comment down below, and I would be happy, whether you're doing a new coilover system, you're replacing the lower control arm, I'd be happy to help you guys out in any way possible, because I really struggled with this, trying to figure out exactly how I was supposed to do it, but once you get it down, really easy. Here is the shocks actually taken out of the car. Here is the fronts, and where they actually will be cutting and welding is right here, and the new shock will be this part up. Because this is welded in, this is like the upper control arm kind of piece of the car. They actually have to cut and weld. You can't just put a bolt through it. As for the backs, it's going to be the same thing, but right here. That's why you actually didn't need to remove all this, but I did it anyway just because it will be easier. And as you can see, the same system over here. You have the rear drum brake, you have the actual coil itself. Where they will be cutting is right here and right here, and that is the whole system. Here is your whole suspension for a Datsun 280Z. Now I'm gonna go take these and get them welded by a place called Godzilla Raceworks out in Fort Worth, not too far from me, and I will check back in a few days when they're all ready to be put back in. See you guys in a second. And just like that, the coils have been welded. What's been a few seconds for you guys has been about a week and a bunch of hassle on my end actually. But the coils are welded, and here they are. As you can see, these are the brand new coils. These are BC Racing Coilovers, and they have been welded to the stock hub kind of thing here. These are the fronts, and then over here you can see the backs and the lower control arm that I took out as well. So as you can see, it's welded, and then here is the brand new BCs. They got some camber plates in there as well as some dampening adjustment, and they just look phenomenal. These are going to be such a better ride. Huge shout out to Godzilla Raceworks. If you guys need coilovers or anything for your Z pretty much, they can not only sell it to you, but they can do it. I bought these coils from them, and I had them weld it for me, so go check them out. They'll be linked down below. So huge shout out to Godzilla for helping me out with this. Basically now all I have to do is put everything back the way that it came out, and then we can do some adjustment. These actually came already preloaded, so there's no play in this spring. If there's any play in the spring, then I would have to preload it. But the instructions said that they came preloaded. I actually got to ride in a car at Godzilla that had these coils, these exact coils in it, and they felt so great. I cannot wait to put these in my car. Without further ado, let's start getting these things put back in. I'm gonna start with the passenger side, make sure I know how to do it, and then I'm gonna film everything on the driver's side. Let's get into it. Alright, we're gonna start with the fronts because they're a lot easier than the backs to install. Basically, all we gotta do is get the coil in here, which shouldn't be that hard. These coils are a lot lower. The other ones I had to actually like apply pressure here to get them out. Now these are like substantially lower, so I actually have to raise this up to the coil for it to fit. Anyway, and then all we have to do from there is put that back on, the rotor, and then put some nuts and stuff back together. And normally you put the caliper back on around that time, but I'm not putting the caliper back in. Again, different video. You'll see what's coming with this general area here. But please put the caliper back in. This isn't a caliper delete. This is not a brake delete. Don't take out your brakes. Don't leave out your brakes if you took them out. I took mine out for a reason. Don't leave out your brakes. I cannot stress that enough. Disclaimer, please don't die because you left your brakes out of the car. I'm saying that now. I am being very clear. Put your brakes back. I am not. Don't be like me. Put your brakes back. And just like that, everything is pretty much back together. Now, again, the brake caliper is not on here. I purposefully didn't put the brake caliper on here. I'm just putting everything back together for now and lowering it to see how everything looks and to make sure everything fits. But basically, the top, so you have the dampener adjustment up here, and then you also have a camber plate hidden below this. I don't know if I'm going to cut this to make it wider. The previous owner actually cut it here to make like a camber like slot, I think. I don't really know. Anyway, there's slots there, but I don't know if I'm gonna adjust that. If you guys are putting this back yourself, basically the brake mounts right here, so the dust shield has to go on this side, like right here, right? So like this opening right here in the dust shield, that's how that mounts. It doesn't mount upside down or something like that, so the brake caliper can like chomp right here. Anyway, the fronts are super easy. The fronts was not what I was worried about. Ran into a couple of little nicks, but the backs are what's gonna be really difficult because I have to put this entire lower control arm in and reconnect the rear axle and the sway bar. Basically, how I'm gonna do this is take the jack, put the whole assembly onto the jack over there, and then raise the entire thing up into the car. It's easier said than done, that is for sure, because this thing is not going to want to go back. I already did it on one side, it was already a pain. Preferably have someone help you with this. I don't have anyone that's able to help me right now, so this is a lot harder than it should be. But it's going to go back in, and then once everything's back on, we will drop this car, and you will get to see what this thing looks like with these new BC ultra low like coils, and it's gonna be so great. I'm so excited. Anyway, let's get going on the backs. And just like that, the car is pretty much all back together. Now again, I didn't reconnect the brakes I didn't reattach the brakes in the front. I didn't reconnect them in the back at all. Again, that'll be something that I tackle later. For now, I just need to get the car down so I can move it around. But again, that'll be another video soon. We're about to drop this thing off the stands, or lower it off the stands, so you guys can see how low this car is gonna be. I can already tell this is gonna be insanely low just based on seeing it up like this. Like, that already looks low to me, and it is on stands right now in the air. This car is going to be insanely low. Also, while I was installing the rear drum brake, I found a wasp nest. Like, it's an inactive nest. All the wasps are dead, obviously, but somehow wasps got inside the drum brake and made a nest. I don't know. I literally drive this car too. It's not like it just sits, except for when it's being worked on. So I don't know how long that's been there, or how it's even like stayed there. But anyway, maybe that explains why that brake wasn't working too well, but we'll see. I will say, before I lower it, I know you guys are getting impatient, but before I lower it, it was really funny. When I reattached this, I was looking at the other wheel over there to see if it like all connected, and I turned this wheel this way and the other wheel turned that way. And for a brief moment in my tired state, I was like, I don't know how I messed up that bad, where one wheel's turning one way and the other's turning the other way. And then I remembered how our differential works, and so we're good. But I freaked myself out for a solid probably 30 seconds. I was like, I don't know how I did that. I don't know how I'm gonna fix that. And then, anyway, yeah, I realized it. So yes, I'm dumb. No, I'm not. At the same time, I figured it out. Anyway. Okay, so I had a bit of an emergency. It wasn't anything too bad. When I lowered the car, the jack got caught under it in the front and the back. The front wasn't that big a deal because there's nothing, you know, dangerous that it could get caught on, you know. It was just the front bumper. Like, it kind of got caught on this area right here, so I couldn't get it out. In the back, however, it got caught just by enough pressure to get it caught on this rear fuel tank. That is where the fuel for this car is stored, and I actually feel where it kind of made an impression on the fuel tank. Luckily, it wasn't anything too bad, and I caught it before it did any real damage, but the BRZ came in clutch, and I actually took the emergency jack out of the BRZ to raise it up by like a millimeter to get the main jack out. Luckily, everything was okay, or at least it is so far. But it definitely concerned me. I was definitely frantically running around. I moved the BRZ before I lowered the back in case something came loose. And I also chalked the front, so, you know, nothing, I wouldn't take out two cars if something went wrong. There, wow, that is low. Oh my gosh. This car is on the ground, y'all. This is nuts. Oh my, that is absolutely nuts. I'm gonna get it off that front thing right there so you guys can see what it actually looks like. So I got the Datsun on the ground. Finally, it was kind of a mess to get it there, but it looks insane. I don't know if the camera does it justice, but it is so low. This is how they came. I didn't adjust anything. There is a tiny, tiny gap in the front. One finger, maybe. And then in the back, it is like a dollar bill. Like, literally, there is a gap there. There is a gap there. Here's a 20. Look at that. That's nuts. That is actually nuts right there. Now, obviously, it's too low to drive like this, so eventually I will end up raising it, probably when I do the other work I'm gonna do. But I love, it looks so neat. It looks like a toy car. And the camera doesn't do it justice at all. But it literally looks like, I feel like I can just pick it up. Like, me standing next to this car is, I'm about 6 feet tall. So you can kind of get an idea of how tall I am compared to this car now. It used to come up to like, I don't know, here maybe? So it's like a whole 6 inches lower, probably. Maybe not that much, but it's a lot lower, okay? But this thing is nuts. I'm freaking out. I've been freaking out for the past like hour about this. I actually forgot to pick up the camera after I lowered it because I've just been staring at it. It's so cool, guys. If you guys want BC Racing, if you guys want coilovers for your Datsun, I suggest BC Racing, or I just suggest any coilovers. Any coilovers would be really cool. I'm going to link these down below. Huge shout out to Godzilla Raceworks for not only helping me choose these coilovers, but also helping me weld them and get them set up for this car. And this is so nuts. Like, I've never had a car this low. I've never seen the appeal of a super low car, like unfunctionally low. But now I'm in love. I'm in love. This with the new seats, guys, I'm going nuts. I'm actually going insane. I know probably the first half of this video was a little boring, but like, oh, this car is gonna be so cool. If you waited this long, you guys better subscribe. Cause like, if you're not already, we got some seriously cool stuff coming with this car. If not, I don't care, but we got some I'm going nuts. I'm going insane. Oh, I cannot wait. Y'all don't even know how cool this is gonna be. Look how low it is. Look at that. It's almost on the ground. Anyways, I wish I could drive it for you guys and like tell you how they feel. That'll have to be another video because the brakes aren't in it and I still have a coolant leak and a bunch of other things which will come soon enough. Until then, thank you guys so much for watching. I will put out a review video with these coils in the future. And this car's just gonna get cooler and cooler as we keep going. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye. You're still here. Well, I hate to tell you, but the video's over. I'll see you on the next one.